got you niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.
What's up, Little Biscuit? So, drop to me. This is your boy Eddie Collins here with a bonus mini review of Inside Out 2. Now, help me break it down is the illustrious Tatiana.
Thank you.
Yes, who actually saw the first Inside Out with me 9 years ago.
Yes, we've been together for a very long time.
A very long time. And I remember when we first saw the Inside Out, you know, I got a little teary-eyed at parts.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, in the first one, what did it was that Bing Bong.
Yeah, Bing Bong hit everybody in the gut.
Oh my gosh. I thought Inside Out was very clever. Mm-hmm. And they consulted, I think, in LCSW or LMSW, so licensed social worker or whatever. So definitely, felt like it was appropriate for a lot of reasons, right? Like helping kids come to term, but then also helping their parents come to term. Because I think like we are of a generation that is trying our hardest to understand our own past and our own experiences and traumas, and then trying to identify that and, resolve that, and then so that our children don't have to go through it. But I think one of the things, I mean, we're not parents yet, but one of the things I've learned about being a kind of sort of parent, a pseudo parent for a lot of kids in my life is it doesn't matter like how hard parents try. There's always something that your kids are going to be like, this is the one time or like there's no foolproof way of like not fucking up your kids.
Yeah. And it's also like you're fucked up too. Like, I think that's what I liked about the first one and the second one, like kind of talking about the different perspectives and how other people's emotions react to certain scenarios. Like her parents both have different dynamics with their emotions and stuff like that, and different needs and wants and stuff like that. Of
course. And I think Inside Out 2 definitely carried over that theme of, the parents' emotions coming through as well, especially given their age, right? And then her friends who, at this rate, Riley.
Yes.
So y'all know I'm not very good with character names at all. So Riley is 13 and hitting puberty. And that is an interesting stage for everyone, right? And puberty hits at different ages, to be very clear. So in this, animation for Riley, it's hitting at 13. She's already 13, not to say like on her 13th birthday. So, want to distinguish. It's not like catalyst. But I do think the catalyst is high school. So it's signifying that transition of a life change or life transition. And so there's that. So she seems to be doing well between the first movie and this one, right? She's like come to terms with the move and all of those changes that she was going through in the first one. And now she's puberty and high school and all the things. And so it is very focused on Riley and less on Riley's relationship with her parents.
Yes. Yeah. And I appreciate that because, as a teenager or a preteen, you're trying to figure things out. And that's when you really start trying to come into your own as your identity. And that's kind of what Joy and the other emotions that we're familiar with, they're trying to help Riley adjust to. But then everything kind of goes to hell when, the puberty button goes off and all these new emotions like anxiety, depression.
Oh, no.
It's not depression. It's envy and new.
Embarrassment.
Yeah.
And boredom.
Yeah. But they call them Inu. They call them Inu, Ennui. Because, the French.
Ennui.
On Wii, that's what's supposed. Oh boy.
Well, I have a bilingual mind.
That's true. Yeah.
And Spanish is a Latin language,
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's the character's name, but
yes.
the feeling that they are
like boredom
representing is boredom.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And you?
I know, that's so bad. And there's like a lot of new, I will say the trailer thankfully did not give away the story.
No, it did not.
I was actually when I saw the trailers, I'm like, oh man, is this gonna be worth it? This is a cash grab. But it'd be a weird cash grab. Like Toy Story, you get it. It's fun toys, great characters. Inside Out is a bit heavy. It's a bit complex. So I'm like,
yeah, and Inside Out 2 doesn't shy away.
No, it doesn't pose postures at all. Yeah,
not at all. But I think that this Inside Out 2 is definitely has to be age appropriate. Just because you have a 4-year-old does not mean your 4-year-old's gonna understand Inside Out 2.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're over the age of 12, you'll probably really enjoy this movie, and and if you're an adult, you'll catch up on things like the dad when they're dropping off Riley at the hockey camp. So this all takes place over a few days. And it's about Riley figuring out how she can come to terms with the fact that her childhood friends are going to be going to her high school, and she wants to join the.
They are not going.
Yeah, they're not going to her high school, and then that she's going to be on her own, and she wants to be part of the high school hockey team, and then her parents are dropping her off, and the dad did a subtle thing, which a few of the adults us included picked up on, where he's like, "Oh, we could have some fun," and the mom's like, "Oh, we got to do these things." And he's just he made a face I'm trying to get down.
You trying to fuck?
Yeah, and some parents are laughing and stuff. And then there's just new characters. I don't want to do deep spoilers because I want people to enjoy this. But there's a character that's voiced by Ron Funches named Bluefy, and then James Austin Johnson, who plays Trump on SNL, as Pouchy. Yeah. And those characters had me in tears. I don't want to tell you what they do and what they're involved in. But we were both laughing.
That's not a spoiler.
Yeah, we were just dying from those characters. It's crazy.
I mean, there's, and rightfully so, right? Because these movies do also have to be for adults, because the likelihood is that adults are going to be going to these movies as well. And I think that for all the millennials, because most of them are millennials in this audience, right, with their kids, at least the screening audience that we were with.
Yes,
there were so many kids.
There's a lot of kids, yeah.
And I think I don't want to say it wasn't a bad audience, but there was certainly a misstep, because a lot of these folks brought their younger children, and I want to say half and half, right? There were reviewers like us, and then I don't know who everybody else is, but they brought their children, and the children, they all had a wide range of ages. So there were teenagers, there were preteens, there were these, kids, I guess, after toddler, preteen children. And then there were actual toddlers. And I was like, yeah, 20 minutes into this movie, your fucking toddlers losing their shit because.
Yeah, I would definitely say after the first 10 minutes when they're doing catch up and everything, it picks up a lot, but then it gets incredibly not complex, but it does dive into these different emotions that you feel once puberty hits, especially with anxiety. Because anxiety, voiced by Maya Hawke, basically kind of takes over shit. She's like, hey, I know what's best for Riley. You got to, let me do my thing. And she basically ships off the old emotions we know in a glass. And they're called, what they said, they're bottled up emotions. Suppressed emotions. And I was just like, oh my God.
It's super clever.
The screenplay should definitely be nominated for Oscar. Shout out to Meg LaFleur and Dave Holston, because that incredibly creative.
I mean, I wasn't keeping track, I obviously wasn't keeping tabs on the credits, but I saw a lot of seemingly female presenting names. And so it made me sort of think super, and I didn't, and to be very straightforward and honest, I don't always pay attention to the credits. But there was something about it that made me stay, because I wanted to see kind of where the credits were landing as far as producers and writers and things like that. And from what I saw, right, because we all know names are just names. They're not inherently masculine or feminine, right? They seemingly seem to be female, but what the fuck do I know?
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, speaking of females, Ao Adebri, I always butcher her last name, but Ao for the bear and all the other things, dozens of things she's been in. She's the voice of Envy, absolutely killed it. Paul Walter Hauser, also another actor that's been killing it, does the voice of Embarrassment. Now here's the thing. Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling did not come back as their respective voices of Fear and Disgust. And for me, I'm like, I didn't quite miss them because I think Amy Poehler is like the one voice you kind of want to keep. Everyone else is like,
I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't even think if they were to recast Amy Poehler as far as a voice, because these are imaginary characters,
okay.
right? So as long as the voice is similar, but like I think the one that needs to stay is Sadness. That is
Phyllis Smith from The Office.
Yeah, like she's great. That is the voice that like if that changed, you'd be like, the fuck. Yeah. And so Sadness gets a good amount.
She gets a good arc in this one.
Yeah, a good amount of shine in this sequel. That, and I have to be honest. I mean, voices aside, right? I didn't miss them, but I also understand like when you connect with a character, it's how the character is presented and written, right? And so they tried to get voice actors that were similar. I will say that.
Yeah, Tony Hall from Veep did the voice of Fear, which is very recognizable. You're like, okay.
And then
actress named Liza LaPrairie, who's done like NCIS and Dollhouse, did the voice of Disgust in this one.
So when they introduce Envy, so Disgust is already green, and Envy is like a teal blue, and it kind of threw me off because
big ass eyes.
Because, yeah, like, Envy is, like, very childlike and doe-eyed. And I was like, oh, this actually feels like they didn't... And obviously, you don't know if you're going to get a sequel or not. But it just threw me off character-wise that the green character... Because this phrase is green with Envy, right? But Envy was teal blue and, like, very childlike in the representation and doe-eyed. And Disgust was, like... Did she just look at, like, it was just very, I think that the actual animation representation of Envy and Disgust could have been flipped.
I get that, but I also like felt like they were probably pairing up emotions maybe for another one or something like that. Because remember, Fear, I forgot what was it, Anxiety that said something, and Fear's like, oh, we're gonna get along really well. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, like they're gonna start showing how these emotions probably work with
like
each other at some
sadness
point.
And embarrassment have moments together.
Exactly.
And Joy is still the driver in this space, though. Joy,
because you need that. Because I mean, there's parts where they clearly were like, I mean, I don't want to spoil a big line. That was the one line that kind of choked up everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that's about Joy.
It was a gut check for the audience. Like, everybody was like, oh.
Because there is a point in your life where you're kind of like I remember thinking, I'm like, there's going to be a point maybe where Riley's like, I don't have joy. And then what does that look like? You know what I mean? And, and Joy also in this moment, like, I think that's why I called out Amy Poehler's voice acting, because there is a moment where, you know, everyone's looking to her for the answers. And she's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And, like, it's a very honest, real moment. It's like, I can't be Joy all the fucking time.
Well, I think that was probably, you know, and I'm often one to point out when writing or, you know, like creatives think the audience is stupid. In this case with Inside Out, I don't think they think the audience is stupid. I think there is something, though, because these are emotions, and they're like the way they've been presented to us is that these emotions are what they are. But then the emotions have emotions, right? So when Joy has a moment of sadness, you're like, wait, but she's Joy. Like, so if Joy has sadness, like, does she have her own set of emotions?
There's layers to this shit, yeah.
And so, at least for me, I was just like, while very real, right? Like being very human first. Like, yeah, we're not always going to be joyful, But I was like, do the emotions have emotions? And I was like, this is where Tati and her overthinking brain was like, ooh, is this the misstep of this movie? Because in them trying to be very human, right? They're giving like humanity to emotions that are already synonymous with a human that we have a face to. So I was just like, these guys are supposed to work together to give the human the range of emotions. But now that the emotions have a range of emotions as well, I was like, this is getting a little confusing. But like I always say, like, if I had to pick something out, that was me and my like most like, oh, if I had to pick something about this movie that I could find to be a negative, that was the thing that I was thinking about. It's not as fast hitting as like with the jokes, I think, as like the first one was. Not that it was jokey, but you know, like they were very quippy a lot of times. But this sequel has a lot of moments that are just like, the writer's room must have been a bunch of like nerdy folks just being like, we doing this for us. And it hits. It hits at the right moments. And I think when I looked at the audience's reaction, they, like you and I were laughing at different moments, and then the people next to us were laughing at other moments. Intentional or not, I think that resonates. And I'd be remiss not to, as a like critic, to see the audience like reacting at different points, whether it was laughter or whether it was heartbreak, like there were definitely tears in the audience. And I don't think there's anything equivalent to that Bing Bong scene in the sequel, but there were people crying in the audience that we saw this with.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely moments where I got a little like, oh man, this is making me feel some emotions like that I haven't really felt before. Or like, thinking about like the way you reacted when you went through some of these changes and transitions, like, dealing with different emotions that were new to you and scary to you and stuff like that. Riley at one point has an anxiety attack. I've just recently, the past few years, come to terms with like the fact that I have anxiety and knowing what that is and knowing how that manifests physically. And so for her to like kind of learn about that at the age of 13, I was like, actually like, it's very scary, but at the same time, if she's becoming aware of it now, that's going to be good for her in the long term to be able to figure out how to address that stuff.
Well, to be fair, she's not actually aware of it.
True. Yeah, it's just, we're aware of it.
She's going through the spectrum of emotions, but she is yet to be able to identify them because we're only seeing it from the emotions point of view. Right? Yeah. So she hasn't really connected with her family or a licensed therapist to identify that. So
that'll be the sequels. That'll be like Inside Out 6, directed by Sam Levinson.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because eventually you're gonna have to get real adult with this stuff. The older she gets, the more it's gonna get kind of crazy.
I know. We were talking about the potential of a sequel where
she's gonna be voiced by Zendaya.
Well, she's
or Hunter Schafer at some point.
She's like dating or something like that.
Yeah. So, as you know, Tatiana, we rate movies on scales of popcorn, small, medium, large, except for the exceptional. If a movie does not deserve a fresh bag of popcorn, though, we put it into the stale pile of popcorn, where we pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on top of it. So, we saw Inside Out 2, starring Amy Poehler, Lewis Black, Maya Hawke, Ayo Edebiri, Paul Walter Hauser, directed by Kelsey Mann, taking over for Peter Doctor. And, what did it say you?
I am going to give this a large. I will say that I am excited to watch it again, probably with my sisters. They're all like, ranging in ages of like their early 20s to early 30s, right? Maybe even my godkids, because they're in that preteen, teenage stage as well. And I think that that's pretty telling, for like an animated feature, and given the heartstrings it pulled in the first one, it is a different enough storyline where it felt like I was watching a different movie. Again, I'm cautiously giving it a large because I do want to see it again with like different people. But I'd be remiss to not point out that the emotions having other emotions is really throwing me off.
Got it.
And I don't know if anybody else will feel that way, but I don't know that I'm sold on the fact that these emotions have other emotions. Because, like, the whole point is to be the emotion that they are. And because of that, I'm, again, cautiously giving it a large.
Okay, got it. I'm also giving it a large. I think this is a return to form in regards to Pixar theatrical releases. Like, there's a lot riding on this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that they did a really good job justifying its existence. I think that the new additions, the new emotions really worked well. I think Maya Hawke actually really impressed me with her portrayal of anxiety. Because for me, it's like they're not necessarily an antagonist. It's just that they're doing what they think is right until they get overwhelmed. And then it's hard to kind of take control of your anxiety after a certain point.
That's what anxiety does.
Yeah,
and I think it was a good portrayal of that, particular, feeling of being like, and also, in this particular coming of age, I would say that as far as Disney, because we all know Disney and Pixar kind of go hand in hand in the modern age, I would say I am a little bit, and not, this is going to I'm going to feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot. But Disney has a habit of only doing this with female characters, and then the backlash being with like their moms, or like a single parental unit, a mom or a dad, or in this case Riley and her friends, right? Like, there's just always like a female component to this. And I'm not trying to say I don't want females to be leads, but I think when we talk about emotions, it's getting a little cliche of like, oh, females and emotions. I'm interested to see a male perspective on emotions. And I know I mentioned this to you and you were like, well, do you really want to know about preteen boys and their emotions?
Yeah, it's basically a big mouth. The only way we might get that with the Inside Out series at this point is either they do different, like we talked about, like Riley maybe starts dating, and then you get the boys' perspective of like what that does to them, or Pixar would never do this, but Riley decides she wants to transition. But that would never probably happen. But like I said, like I get it a large. Visually, it's incredible to look at. Some of the new additions and quirky sense of humor at parts were like really, really charming and entertaining. And I definitely looking forward to seeing this again and kind of digging deeper into it. But based on what I saw, I really, really enjoyed it. And it's tight. It's like a little over an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. It's not these 2.5 hour plus movies that just are like, why do we keep going?
Agreed. I'm usually like, oh, this could have been 15 minutes shorter. This was one movie where I was like, nope, it was the right length of time. The storyline was the right amount. But yeah, I think if you are going to see it with your children, just make sure your kids are of an age, I would say maybe like 9 and up, feels a little bit more appropriate for this particular movie. Given the storyline and the complexity of it, it's not incredibly hard to follow, but I think the connection to the emotions for a younger group of kids just wouldn't really be appropriate. At least not the way the first one kind of resonates with, I think, younger kids.
Yeah, agreed. All right, folks. Well, that's our mini review on Inside Out 2. Let us know what you thought of the movie. Shoot us a tweet at BDMP Podcast, or hit us up on Instagram at the same handle, BDMP Podcast. And Tatiana, how can people follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram at Boricua Collins.
And y'all can follow me at Frodo_Blackwins on Instagram. And also, all your Medium Popcorn needs are at MediumPopcorn.com. Be sure to subscribe to Patreon at patreon.com/MediumPopcorn. We got $2, $5, $10, and $15 tiers. You can even sign up for the $2 tier. Just try it out for a few days. See if you like it. If you do, you'll just lock in, get to enjoy some bonus content, and get to chat with all of us on the platform. But, if money's tight, just leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application. We will read it on the show. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.
Peace.
popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it.
Spoil it in your face.
That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.